I call
they have woven, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member Paul Foster-Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, look, I'm afraid, members, I don't have a visual exhibit to display today. Unlike the front bench of the opposition, I didn't have much time on my hands to sit around engaging in a little bit of graphic design. But I've got some firm facts and figures here which clearly demonstrate that any potential coalition between the opposition parties would be, as the Minister Simon Bridges... I'll take that, thank you. That belongs in the rubbish, thank you. As the Honourable Simon Bridges, the Minister for Mining and Energy, said, we are staring down the possibility of a government made up of the coalition of quackery, or as I call it, the cock-up coalition. And I'll tell you, sir, why it is the cock-up coalition. It's actually been a pretty dark week in New Zealand politics thanks to an announcement from the Labour Party. I, sir, was quite surprised, having worked for this country overseas for nearly 10 years to promote New Zealand as a destination which is sensitive, which is welcoming, which is open to foreign investment, to see a pretty dark policy announced by the opposition. In fact, sir, policy might be a generous term. Policy, when in fact it is just a slogan and there is no research underpinning it, there is no basis, and it certainly is something that does not work. So, sir, let me tell you, the BNZ survey on housing affordability and, in fact, on house sales to foreign buyers showed that only 3 to 4% of purchasers of homes were foreigners. Barfoot and Thompson have also put the number of foreign buyers at 4%. So I think it's pretty clear, and anyone with any common sense would see that the policy that they're proposing will be completely ineffectual at taking the heat out of the Auckland housing market. But there is a dark side to it, sir. There is a hint of xenophobia to this policy, and we can see that, in fact, when the Leader of the Opposition appeared on radio, and actually he didn't use the term foreigners or non-New Zealand citizens. Twice in an interview on radio, the Leader of the Opposition specifically referred to Asian buyers. Now, how do you think that makes members of the Asian community feel, sir? How do members think that that makes members of the Asian community feel? Those hard-working New Zealand citizens who happen to be of Asian origin, who pay their taxes and contribute to this country, employ people and are generally obeying the law and being good citizens in this country. We know they're planning to exempt Australians, which again I have no problem with. I like our Australian cousins and brothers, so I'm delighted that they're exempting Australians. But what about Cook Islanders? What about Niueans, Tongans, Samoans, Irish, Scots, English, Canadians? So I'm pretty appalled by this policy, but it is reasonably reassuring, sir, to know that there is very little chance that a policy like this will be implemented, given the likelihood of the coalition of quackery, the cock-up coalition, being formed after the next election. That said, sir, there is that sinister element, and despite the inefficacy, I'd have to say that perhaps it's not so much the Leader of the Opposition being the New Zealand Enoch Powell, it's more a case of Eunuch Powell. So, sir... There are several other policies we could talk about, but, sir, I think the housing was another case of borrowing from the Greens and New Zealand First. Unfortunately, the man ban, according to the Greens it was unfortunate, was reversed. Materia Ture was highly critical of the move to reverse that ban. So I'm just wondering how long that others on the Liberal left might take to actually convince the Labour Party that a xenophobic policy, a policy that is discriminatory, a racist policy, is bad for them, it's bad for New Zealand, certainly it impacts on our look overseas, and it has consequences in terms of our free trade agreements with some of the economies we've signed up to. Because we know, and academic experts have discussed this point, we know that with the free trade agreement with China, we actually have to be equal in setting restrictions, so we can't exempt Australians. So, I mean, it's an unworkable element of their policy, and I think it's something that they will drop when inevitably, I'm sure, sir, they drop this policy in its entirety after the next election, after the coalition of quackery is defeated and after the cock-up coalition is out.
Great job, Paul Foster-Bell. Great job.
The Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Point of order?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Mr Speaker, I understood that bags, suitcases,